Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. In this episode, we've got Blackhawks making trades, back in first place, reviewing the quarterbacks from this year's NFL draft, and the Cubs making surprise moves. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. But as usual, before we start, we want to mention our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Rockford Ice Hogs, if you're not familiar, are the AHL minor league team of the Chicago Blackhawks. That means you get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly prices that start at just $7 a ticket. $7 a ticket. You can afford to take your family where you can't take them to see the Blackhawks at United Center because it's much too expensive. Located only 90 minutes from the city limits and fun for the whole family. The next two home games will be next Saturday and Sunday, March 5th and 6th, both against the Lake Erie Monsters. Saturday's game starts at 7 o'clock. Sunday's game starts at an earlier 4 o'clock, so you can make it home in time to see The Walking Dead. So if you need to get tickets, more information, whatever, go to icehogs.com. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. All right. This is going to be a quick show. We don't have too much to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the Chicago Bulls, so if you're here to hear about the Bulls, I'm not going to talk about them because they stink, and I haven't watched anything in a week, so I'm not going to talk about them. What I will be talking about are our beloved Chicago Blackhawks. I told you that this week we'd be talking about some trades, hopefully by the deadline. The deadline is tomorrow at 2 p.m., and the Blackhawks have made some serious moves. They've made some moves, some serious, some not. Let's jump right in and talk about them. And the first move is that I'm talking about is the significant one. And I said that the Blackhawks were looking to add a forward, somebody that they could put on the top line with Jonathan Toews and Marian Hossa when he comes back from injury, so they can move Shaw back down to like either the third or the fourth line. And a defenseman. That's ideally what they would get and what they want, and they made a splash. I'll tell you, is they reacquired our old friend Andrew Ladd, and this is going to be a great fit. He already knows he's won the Stanley Cup with the Blackhawks. He knows Coach Quenneville. He knows the core of this team. He knows what the system is and how to play it. And he's gotten better since he's left Chicago playing up in Winnipeg. So they acquired Andrew Ladd and two AHL players, Matt Fraser and Jay Harrison, from the Winnipeg Jets. Sorry, I'm so excited about this. My words are coming out faster than my mouth can move. But the big thing is that they had to give up an awful lot to get a rental player. And Andrew Ladd is a rental player. They're not going to be able to afford to keep him after this year because he's going to be a free agent and he's going to want some significant money, and the Blackhawks just don't have it. So this is really a can we win a Stanley Cup by adding this extra piece? They gave up one of the prize pieces of the Brandon Saad trade, which was Marco Dano, along with their first-round draft pick this year and a conditional third-round pick in 2018. And that condition is if the Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup, the Winnipeg Jets get that third-rounder. If they don't, Hawks keep it. So Ladd's going to be that winger that plays on the other side of Jonathan Toews, opposite Marian Hossa when he returns. And Marian Hossa is expected to start skating tomorrow, according to Joel Quenneville. And if you haven't watched or you haven't been paying attention, Marian Hossa has been out with a lower body injury for a couple weeks now, and he could return for next weekend's game against Detroit on March 6th. So that would be really fantastic to see Ladd and Hossa jump right back into it, and that top line should be firing on all cylinders. This move is going to allow Andrew Shaw to go back to the fourth line and make that line even better. Fraser and Harrison, like I said, are minor leaguers, AHL players, and they gone straight to Rockford, where Dano came from. But for strictly a rental player, this is a pretty high price. Like I said, Dano is one of the key pieces in that Saad trade and a first-round pick. This is going to be 2 straight years giving up first-round draft picks for a rental player. I paid off last year with a Stanley Cup. Fingers crossed that it's going to do that again. Another move the Blackhawks made was they traded Rob Scuderi, who they got in their trade for Trevor Daley with Pittsburgh Penguins, and they traded him to the Los Angeles Kings for defenseman Christian Ehrhoff. Like I said, Scuderi came over in that Trevor Daley deal in December because Daley wasn't a fit with what the Blackhawks were trying to do. And, well, to be honest, neither was Rob Scuderi. Scuderi, first he was the 7th defenseman, and then they moved him down to Rockford completely after placing him on waivers and nobody picked him up. He went down to Rockford, and that's where he was he was playing until this trade came along. And Ehrhoff wasn't a fit in LA. Both players cleared waivers and were in AHL. According to Quenneville, this is a quote, "We like our D to join and get involved in the attack, and he's got that part of his game. He can shoot the puck, and defensively we'll see how that goes, but we think he can help us in ways. He'll get a chance to get going here. Maybe not tomorrow, but we expect him this week." Ehrhoff is a really strong shooter and an offensive defenseman. He had some good years in Vancouver, but his time in Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and LA weren't so great. We'll see if he's given another shot at the NHL level or if he's going to go right to Rockford. He's on the 1-year deal, so after the season's over, he's going to be a free agent, and the Blackhawks won't be on the hook for his salary. I think the way the Blackhawks are going to view this one is they knew Scuderi wasn't a fit. They knew Trevor Daley wasn't a fit. So they were going to keep trying out guys to see if anybody can be, to give them that boost that they're looking for. And Christian Ehrhoff, like I said, he helped Vancouver win a Stanley Cup. And he was the best defenseman on that team. So if he can regain that form from just 6 years ago, or at least a semblance of it, he might be able to help the Hawks. So we'll see how that goes and see if even the Hawks give him a chance or if they put him right down to Rockford. And then finally, the one that made me a little bit more sad was the Blackhawks traded Philip Deneau and the 2018 second-round pick to Montreal for Dale Weiss and Thomas Fleischmann. And they got a good, 2 good players on this trade, but I really like Philip Deneau. I got to meet him a couple times when I was covering Rockford IceHogs games, so icehogs.com, check him out. Philip Deneau was a really talented guy, and I really liked him. He was definitely he was on the what is the Anisimov, Panarin, Kane line to the Blackhawks. He was on that line for the Rockford IceHogs last year. So Philip Deneau is a really talented kid. I like him a lot. He's a good kid. Montreal got a heck of a player there. But the Blackhawks wanted to bolster their bottom 2 lines, and Stan Bowman hopes that by trading for Fleischmann and Weiss from the Canadiens, that he's going to actually do that. Pretty much the Blackhawks have been ultra successful this season. They've only done it with that second line being consistent. The top 3rd and 4th line struggled to find some consistency. They added Andrew Ladd, I'm sorry. They added Andrew Ladd to help on that first line and hopefully get some consistency there. But hopefully this move with the Canadiens is going to solidify the third and fourth lines. And against the Washington Capitals in today's game, you already have the third line as Desjardins, Teuws, and Fleischmann. And once Hossa comes back, that talent level is really going to trickle down with Shaw moving down the line and being able to have some consistency and flexibility with those third and fourth lines. And hopefully this infusion of talent will really also bring a level of consistency, because that's what the Blackhawks need. They need to have 4 consistent lines. That's been their formula for winning the Stanley Cup. And just ask the Anaheim Ducks last year about that fourth line of the Blackhawks. Gave them fits. They probably still have nightmares about it. Just 18 days left, or 18 games left to go for the Blackhawks. If the Blackhawks started the playoffs today, they would be in first place, and they would be playing Colorado, the Avalanche. So once Hossa comes back from injury and Marcus Kruger comes back from injury, which are expected to be soon for both players, your 4 lines are going to be, the Toews line is going to be Jonathan Toews, Andrew Ladd, Marian Hossa. That second line, of course, is going to be Artem Anisimov, Artemi Panarin, and Patrick Kane. The third line, it's going to be Teuvo Teravainen, Dale Weiss, Thomas Fleischmann. And that fourth line, the one that's I'm kind of excited about because I think they can do an awful lot, is Marcus Kruger, Andrew Shaw, and Andrew Desjardins. That line, those 4 lines are going to be havoc on teams, because I really think the way that Shaw gave an infusion to that top line, Andrew Ladd is going to get an even better boost and more stability there. And then moving Shaw down to that fourth line with Kruger and Desjardins, that line is going to be hell on teams. On that, they're probably going to put that on the other team's top line, let them just wreak havoc and be little gnats, and because you don't have to worry about that as being a scoring line. Let them just pester them and let the top 2 lines be your scoring lines. And this is going to be a tough team to beat. Every year over the last few years, the Blackhawks have put out a really talented team in the playoffs. And, of course, they've won a few cups. In the years that they didn't win cups, they were at least really competitive. But they've always had that missing piece, whether it be the second line center or what have you. They've always been missing some piece that they've tried to plug in and make it do, like limp along with it. But this year, there's really no gaping holes. That second line is absolutely one of the best lines in all of hockey. Toews and Hossa are great together, and you add a really good player like Andrew Ladd, and then you stabilize the third and fourth lines. Crawford is playing lights out. He's got to be a top 5 goalie in the NHL. And then you still have Seabrook and Keith and Hjalmarsson, and you've got some young talent playing with them in the defensive pairings. There's really not a lot of holes on this team. This is a Stanley Cup that's the Blackhawks to lose. They're better than every other team, and they just have to go out there and show it. Today they played the team with the best record in all of hockey, the Washington Capitals, and other than they were winning 3-1 going till late, and then some stupid penalties, and they scored on a 6-on-3. It was a 5-on-3, and they pulled the goalie late in the game. It was a 6-on-3, and it was still a lucky shot that went up the back of Crawford into the goal. So, and the Blackhawks win. This is the Blackhawks Stanley Cup to lose, and I'm going to be very, very sad if they don't win this one, just because they're so much more talented than most any other team out there. So here's to some exciting hockey over the next few weeks and months. Hopefully it leads to another Stanley Cup, because I love the parade. I love all of that stuff, and it's such a glorious. It's the most beautiful trophy in all the sports, the Stanley Cup. So rich in history, and it's just a thing of beauty. So, having it be in its rightful home in Chicago is always glorious. Let's quickly talk Bears, and by Bears we'll talk football, the NFL draft, and a little bit about some of the NFL important dates that are coming up. So March 1st, which is I think Tuesday, is the last day for teams to designate a tag to a player. Why this is important for the Bulls? Man, I am all blah, blah, blah today. Why this is important for the Bears is they still haven't agreed to a long-term contract with Alshon Jeffrey. So expect the tag to be placed either tomorrow or Tuesday on Alshon Jeffrey. I don't think this is the way that the Bears wanted to go about it. I don't think Brian Pace, the Bears general manager, really, really wanted to put the tag on. I felt like he waited so long because he was actively trying to negotiate a long-term deal, because the long-term deal is better for the Bears and it's better for the player. It's better for the player because he gets guaranteed money. So he has guaranteed money, which is the signing bonus, and it's a little more security for the player. Whereas if Alshon gets the 1-year tag deal, he's going to get 14 point something million dollars. But if he gets I would say a 5-year, $60 million deal, and 20 of it's guaranteed, he's got this year's salary plus $20 million already guaranteed if they cut him next year, and then he can sign a new contract. So it's a little more security financially for him. And for the Bears, they're able to manipulate that cap hit a little more, because right now if he signs that that tag for 14.8 million or 5 million or whatever it is, that becomes straight on the books this year. Whereas if he has a signing bonus, you can finagle that over the life of the contract. You can adjust salaries to backload some things, front load some things, depending on how you feel your cap room is. So it's advantageous for the Bears to get this deal done as well, because they can finesse and sue that cap hit any way they want to have the best salary cap situation that they want. So look for that Monday or Tuesday, unless they get an announcement for a long-term deal before then. But I really feel that they're waiting so long because players hate the franchise tag. They'd rather have the long-term deal, but they're giving it as much time as they can to apply it. And the beauty of the franchise tag is if the Bears do give Alshon the tag, it doesn't mean that he has to play for that. They still have most of the summer to work out a long-term deal. So it just gives them a little more time and flexibility to get this deal done. Then March 9th is the official first day of free agency, when you can sign a player. So that's a week from Wednesday. You can start signing free agents. And there's a few day period before that. I think it's like the 5th through the open of the free agency period, when you can negotiate with players and discuss with them contract situations. And then once the 9th hits, that's when you can officially sign the players. And then April 28th, 29th, and 30th is the NFL draft. That's the beauty. That's the thing I love to talk about. And today we are going to be talking about the quarterbacks in the NFL draft. I know a lot of you were interested in hearing about the quarterbacks. So this is if you're new to this show, after the NFL season ends and before the NFL draft, once a week we pick a position and we go through that position and talk about a bunch of the top players that are going to be at that position in the NFL draft. So this year, and I just sort of draw it out of a hat. This year we did week 1 running backs, fullbacks. Week 2 we did wide receivers. Week 3 we did defensive tackles. Week 4 we did cornerbacks. Week 5 we did centers. This week we're doing quarterbacks. Next week, tight ends. So let's jump right in and talk about the quarterbacks. And like I said every week is I don't watch highlight reels. I don't watch anything like that. What I watch is actual game film. So the game film it basically cuts out all the time between plays. So once the whistle blows until they line up, they cut all that out. They cut out the commercials, and they cut out any play that's not where the player I'm looking at is not on the field. So the quarterback, it's going to be every offensive snap where the quarterback is on the field. I watch that, so just spliced together. And I'll watch several games because I want to see what happens all the time, not just on their highlight reel throws, but I want to see what happens every single snap to get a better picture of what this player is and who he is. So the first one I looked at is Jared Goff out of Cal, 6'4", 215. Pros. He looks like an NFL quarterback. He reads coverage well. He doesn't lock on to receivers. He can make all of the NFL throws. He makes those throws look effortless. He's athletic and reasonably fast, has some zip on his passes. The cons, even though he has good footwork, he can get a little dancy in the pocket. It looks like he's doing some sort of dance back there. And he can sometimes be a little unaware in the pocket, and he underthrows some passes, underthrows a few too many passes. It was enough where I noted it as a concern. But he's easily the best quarterback in this draft. Likely the first overall pick. He has all the tools. I'd be confident to pick him up in the top 10, no problem, and plug and play. He's a plug and play guy. He's going to be for whatever team drafts him, unless it's Dallas because they have Tony Romo. But any team that, any other team in the top 10, he's probably going to go in and start day one of his rookie year. And if you're paying a quarterback that much and investing a top draft pick in him, you really wanted to play that early. So that's something you can do with Jared Goff. Next is Carson Wentz. You may not have heard of him. Maybe starting to hear about him now a little more, but he's out of North Dakota State. 6'5", 237. He has prototypical size for an NFL quarterback. Really strong arm. He can throw the ball into a really tight spot. He's very decisive when he comes out on the field. Cons, he's a little like Peyton Manning in the pocket, and I don't mean that in a good way. His footwork and his awkward running style, it's more like a lumber. And he played against really small-time competition. He definitely has the physical talent to play in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. He did really great at the lower ranks, but he's not a plug-and-play sort of guy. Dallas would be wise to draft him that second pick because he can sit behind Tony Romo for a year or two and really learn the system and get a chance to learn from the NFL and the speed of the game, and he's going to be awesome. But you need him to sit behind a real quarterback. He played really well in the Senior Bowl and the Senior Bowl practice as well. This guy is going to be the real deal next level. Next is Paxton Lynch out of Memphis. 6'7", 244. Really strong arm, fairly athletic, tall. But he's a complete arm thrower. He doesn't really step into his throws. Too many underneath passes. Throws some lame duck passes. It looks a little like Peyton Manning passes towards the end of his career. I'm not a big fan of Lynch as a first rounder. If he falls into the second round or so, I would take a flyer on him. But I don't see him leading the team to the promised land, to be honest with you. At best, he's Joe Flacco from Baltimore. And it's funny because I scouted him maybe Friday or Thursday. And I wrote down, I see Joe Flacco when I see him. And today I was gone most of the weekend. I wasn't around, so I DVR'd the combine coverage, and I sat down to watch the quarterback talks. And Mike Mayock, who's out of the draft guys, is the guy I respect the most. And I'm listening to him, and he says, Carson Wentz, I see Joe Flacco in him. And I went, there we go. I'm sorry, Paxton Lynch. Sorry, I was looking at a picture of Carson Wentz when I said that. But Paxton Lynch, he said he sees Joe Flacco, and I'm like, absolutely, that's exactly who I see. At best, he could be Joe Flacco, who's above average quarterback. He's way more than a game manager, but he's not an Aaron Rodgers either. He's somewhere in between there. So at best, that's what Paxton Lynch could be. Next is Connor Cook out of Michigan State, 6'4", 217. He throws amazing passes, has the zip when he needs the zip on the pass. He's got a soft touch when he needs a soft touch. He can throw it in a tight spot. He can make all the NFL throws. He's athletic enough, but his questions are more about his personality and his character. He was a senior starting quarterback, one of the top 5 physical quarterbacks in the NFL, in college football last year, and he wasn't a captain of his team. That's interesting. He's got serious questions about his attitude and his maturity, and he's a bit dancy in the pocket and makes too many risky throws. There's too many question marks about him that I can't answer through game film. I can see him make the throws, and I can see him do well, and I can see him do all these things. But for me to really evaluate Connor Cook, it has to be, you have to talk to him and talk to his coaches and talk to his teammates and figure out what the answers to these questions about his personality and his character are. But for me, because I can't do that I just have game film to rely on, I would be not willing to waste a first-round draft pick on him at that point, because you don't want to wait. If they turn out that he does have character issues, he's going to fail at this next level. But if his character issues do check out and he's everything his coaches are saying he is publicly, then he's going to be a great talent, and those character issues are going to make him slide, and somebody's going to get a really good quarterback if they all check out. Then there's Christian Hackenberg out of Penn State, 6'4", 223. He's a perfectly average quarterback, nothing special. He'd be an awesome guy to have in your weekend rec league, flag football league, but he's not that athletic. His arm is mediocre, too many risky passes. He's another above-average, try-hard college quarterback who at best will be an NFL backup. So draft it at your own risk. I've got 2 more quarterbacks, but this is like most years, there's not a lot of quarterbacks to get excited about. I think this is a 3-quarterback race. If Connor Cook pans out, he's the 3rd. Otherwise, it's Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. I think those are your 3. Then there's Dak Prescott out of Mississippi State, 6'2", 226. He's got an okay arm. He played against big-time competition at Mississippi State, but he's a bit short at 6'2", throws too many risky passes. He's not very fast or athletic. He's got poor pocket presence. I think he has 0 chance of being an NFL quarterback. 0. Sorry. And then last but not least, is Cardale Jones out of Ohio State, 6'5", 253. Garbage quarterback. Sorry. He may have been all right in a college system against college competition. He's not an NFL quarterback. He's not going to be one. There's going to be people out there that are like, oh, he's a sleeper pick, and I think he could sneak up. And I bet somebody's going to way overdraft Cardale Jones, just like they did out of that kid out of UCLA last year. And you know what? He's going to be nothing. He's not going to play well in the NFL. And so that's it for the college quarterbacks. Like I say every week, is if I didn't review a quarterback and you want to know a little bit more about him, please feel free to write in. There's tons and tons and tons of players coming out of the draft. I just don't have time to review everybody. So I make this list. I'm like, I'm going to do these guys. And I may not always get the guy that you want to hear about. I'm more than happy to go back. It's just I need to draw the line somewhere. If I was single and didn't have my wife and daughter, or a demanding job, I would totally do every person in the draft and watch even more game film because I love doing this. So it's not an issue if you have somebody you want to hear about. It just I sort of have to draw an arbitrary line. And if the Bears draft anybody and I haven't covered them already, I promise you I will go back and review everybody that the Bears have drafted because that's important to me. So every week now, from now until the draft and up until draft eve, I will do another one, is I do a mock draft. And the way I do it is, unlike some writers where I do the draft and I mock for every team, or I just arbitrarily pick who I think the Bears will get, I use a website called firstpick.com. So it's first-pick.com. And they have what they call it's a draft game. And it has, specific rankings for certain players based on several different websites that rank players. So it uses a combination of those and the needs of each team, the draft status, etc. And it will pick for every other team. And then I choose for the Bears. So it takes away a lot of the bias if I were to do it all myself or just randomly pick, because sometimes the guy I want gets picked 1 or 2 picks ahead of me and he's gone and I have to make a new pick. So it adds some semblance of reality to it. I can't just arbitrarily assume the guy I want is going to fall to me. So I did a mock last week, and that was the first one. This week I've got a new one, and every week it's going to be a little different because you're going to see new information come out about players. The combine happened. Players' draft stock's going to rise and fall. Some team is going to covet. There's going to be word that some team covets this other player, etc. Pro days happen. So it's going to be a little bit different every week. But we're going to get an idea of some of the guys I think the Bears could draft. So this week's mock is in my first round, pick number 11 in the first round. I have Jalen Smith, linebacker out of Notre Dame. He's a really phenomenal talent. He's just recovering from injury. If he recovers from that injury, he is going to be an absolute stud. I feel like he's at number 11. He's too good to pass up, and he falls to me. So I take him at number 11. Second round, pick number 10 in the second round, I pick Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle out of Louisville. He was a guy I really liked when I was reviewing the defensive tackles in the draft. I liked Sheldon Rankins. He's still available in the second round. I jump on him in a heartbeat. Third round, pick number 9 in the third round, a cornerback who I think still needs a little bit of work, but I think he's got a ton of upside, is Will Redmond, cornerback out of Mississippi State. Fourth round, pick number 8 in the fourth round, I have Aaron Burbridge, wide receiver out of Michigan State. And again, do we need a wide receiver? Probably not. But if I'm the Bears, I'm picking best player available. Whoever that is, whatever position, I see the best player available, and that's who I'm picking. And at this point in my mock, he was the best player available, so I took him. Round 5, pick number 11 in round 5, I pick CJ Prosise, running back out of Notre Dame. I have him as one of my better running backs in the draft. So to have him fall to me in the 5th round, I got to go for it. You already let Matt Forte go. You do have 2 running backs that you like, but having a third running back never hurt anything. You're going to carry 3 on the roster. You might as well have a third that you're comfortable with in putting it in a rotation. And CJ Prosise is exactly that. Round 6, pick number 10, I have Reese Odiambo, offensive guard out of Boise State. Probably have never seen him play. You probably don't watch a lot of Boise State games, and if you do and you watch a home game, you probably get nauseous and dizzy from watching that blue field. But he's a really good guard, and if him falling in the 6th round, I'm happy with that. Also in the 6th round, pick 29 in the 6th round, I have Kevin Byard, strong safety out of Middle Tennessee. I like him. I think he's one of the better strong safeties in the draft, and have him fall in the 6th round, that's a steal for me. Again, in one of my 3 picks in the round 6, I have the 31st pick in the round 6 is Victor Ochi, outside linebacker, more of a 3-4 defensive end from Stony Brook. I think he's a steal here. And then finally, my 7th round pick, pick 9, I have Kaimi Fairbairn, the kicker out of UCLA. Again, I don't know if Robbie Gould is here next year. He makes a lot of money. If you cut Robbie Gould and you cut a couple of other veterans that you expect to cut, the Bears have over $70 million to spend this offseason. And why not pay a guy, $350,000 when, instead of paying Robbie Gould $4.1 million, especially when Robbie Gould has been a little bit of a clubhouse nuisance the last couple years in the media, and he wasn't clutch last year. So I draft a kicker, my 7th round pick. So that's my point. I'm done with. If you can't tell by listening to the show, I'm so done with Robbie Gould. He did his time. He's going to go down as the all-time best Bears kicker, but every good story has to come to an end. And then finally, I'm going to wrap it up with some Cubs talk. I didn't think I would be talking Cubs just because we're in that weird point of spring training when pitchers and catchers are reported, but they haven't started games yet, or inter-squad games or anything like that, split squad games. But the Cubs made a surprise move. Is one day after it was announced that the Orioles had signed a 3-year, $35 million contract for Dexter Fowler, the Cubs announced that they assigned him. So a 1-year deal for $8 million with a buyout. And so it turned out that Dexter Fowler wanted a 1-year option, or an option to opt out of his contract with the Orioles after 1 year. And the Orioles said, nope, we're not going to be giving up our first round pick to the Cubs for a guy that's going to opt out after 1 year. That's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. So he said, nope, I'm not going to sign with you. Instead, he signed with the Cubs, hoping for a shot at winning the World Series. What it does mean, though, is a crowded outfield. I don't think it's a bad thing that you signed Dexter Fowler, especially since although he's not the best fielder there is, he's much better fielder than Kyle Schwarber or Jorge Soler. And when you put him in center field, he's an average center fielder, but then that allows you to move Jason Hayward over to right field, where he's probably the best right fielder in baseball. So I want to break this down. I just started thinking about, now that you've added Dexter Fowler, is when they start the season, the regular season, versus the Anaheim Angels, it's going to be in Anaheim, and that means the Cubs are going to be using the designated hitter because they're in an American League park. So I envision this as their starting lineup for the day and their batting order. You have Dexter Fowler leading off and playing center field. Ben Zobrist batting second and playing second. Anthony Rizzo batting third and playing first. Chris Bryant batting cleanup, playing third base. Kyle Schwarber batting fifth and being the designated hitter. Jason Hayward batting sixth, playing right field. Jorge Soler batting seventh and playing left field. Miguel Montero catching and batting eighth. And Addison Russell batting ninth and playing shortstop. That is a ridiculous lineup. Where's the hole in that lineup? There's no hole in there. I mean, maybe Miguel Montero, but he had like over 300 on base. What was he, a 340 something on base percentage last year? This is just an on base machine team. This is sick. They're going to be a difficult team to beat when they can put this lineup out there. Barring any sort of injury, this is a sick team that everybody's really going to have a tough time beating. And then you toss in that this could be their starting rotation: John Lester, Jake Arrieta, John Lackey, Kyle Hendricks, Jason Hamill. And you toss in the fact that Javi Baez is, you're coming off the bench, and he was the Cubs' top prospect for a long time. So you have one of your top prospects that's sitting on the bench ready to come in and play third base, shortstop, second base, any of the outfield positions. And he's like a super utility guy. He's like a poor man's Ben Zobrist. This is a tough team, and it just gets me giddy. I'm just so anxious for games now because I want to see this Cubs team hopefully become a juggernaut. I mean, who knows what happens, because baseball is an interesting sport. It has by far the most luck involved in it and a lot of chance involved with it, but the Cubs really are stacking the deck in their favor in that game of chance. The one move that I didn't like, I understand why they did it, but they traded Chris Coghlan, and once you saw Chris Coghlan get traded, you knew that some other move was on the horizon, and that other move turned out to be that they signed Dexter Fowler. But you can't have Coghlan, Fowler, Hayward, Jason Hayward, Jorge Soler, and Kyle Schwarber. You can't have everybody. They had to move him, and I wish they would have got a little more for him. But best of luck with Chris Coghlan in Oakland. I hope he does well there because I liked him. I thought he was a really team player, real team player, and he played well for the Cubs last year, and he was definitely an important part of what they did. So hopefully this was the right move, and bringing Fowler back to be a cog in this machine is where it goes. So here's to seeing a little more of the Cubs and talking about them more in the coming weeks, and hopefully the White Sox can, while there's still free agency out there, can pick up that left-handed bat and hopefully win the division. It would be nice to see Cubs and White Sox both in the playoffs and in the hunt for a World Series. And one last thing I have to mention, I don't think it's a very significant move, but because it's my wife's all-time favorite baseball player, I have to mention it, is the flying Hawaiian Shane Victorino is now a Chicago Cub. The Cubs signed him to a minor league deal, and apparently they had agreed to the deal prior to signing Dexter Fowler, but they decided to honor the agreement anyway. So it's a minor league deal with a major league tryout. So I don't expect him to make this team. Maybe he does, but he has won a World Series, so hopefully he doesn't suck like he did the last 2 years with a batting .230. But I had to mention it because that's my wife's all-time favorite player. She's from Philadelphia. Don't hold it against her. But I guess that's going to be it for the show. And if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, definitely hit me up. SwerskiSports.com, Twitter @SwerskiSports, Facebook.com/SwerskiSports. I expect way more Bears talk next week because we're going to have a lot more rumors. We'll be right on the eve of when I record next week. We'll be like right on the eve of the opening of the NFL trade deadline, which will be a couple days out. So we'll have a little more of the concrete rumors. But until next time, thank you guys so much for listening. Until then, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.